August 28th, 2003, Erie, Pennsylvania. A pizza delivery driver walked into a bank carrying a strange homemade gun, but the weapon in his hand was not the reason everyone inside obeyed him. Locked around his neck was a heavy metal collar connected to a bomb. The man approached the counter and handed the teller a note demanding $250,000. The note warned that there were only 15 minutes remaining. The teller could not open the bank's main vault, so she gave him all the cash immediately available, $8,702. The man took the money, walked out of the bank, and drove away. Police caught him only minutes later. They ordered him out of his vehicle, forced him onto the pavement, and placed him in handcuffs. But that was when the suspected bank robber began begging the officers for help. He told them the bomb was real. He said strangers had locked it around his neck, and he said he was running out of time. Police called the bomb squad. Officers moved away and took cover behind their vehicles, unsure how powerful the device might be. The man remained sitting on the pavement with his hands restrained behind him. Then the bomb began making a faster, more urgent sound. He understood what it meant. At 3:18 that afternoon, the device exploded. The bomb squad arrived approximately 3 minutes later. At first, this appeared to be a bank robbery that had gone horribly wrong. But inside the dead man's vehicle, investigators found a set of handwritten instructions. Those pages revealed that the bank robbery was only the first part of a much larger plan. The man had been sent into a deadly scavenger hunt across the city. Each clue supposedly brought him closer to the keys that could unlock the collar and save his life. But investigators would eventually discover that the scavenger hunt was hiding something much darker. The stolen money was never simply intended to make someone rich. It was supposed to pay for another murder, and the man wearing the bomb may have known more about the robbery than he told police. His name was Brian Wells. Brian was 46 years old and had delivered pizzas in Erie for approximately 10 years. Co-workers described him as dependable and quiet. On the afternoon of August 28th, an order arrived at Mamma Mia's pizzeria for 2 pizzas. But the delivery address was not a normal home or business. The caller directed Brian to a remote television transmission tower at the end of a dirt road. Brian was approaching the end of his shift, but he accepted the delivery. At approximately 2 o'clock, he left the restaurant carrying the pizzas. What happened at the tower during the next 30 minutes remains one of the most disputed parts of the entire case. But at 2:28 that afternoon, Brian entered a nearby PNC bank. He carried a strange, homemade weapon designed to resemble a walking cane. Under his shirt was the metal collar. The robbery note instructed the bank employees to place $250,000 into a bag. It warned them not to contact police and claimed that the bomb would explode if Brian failed to complete his assignment. Brian left the bank with only $8,702. Instead of immediately escaping, he drove to a McDonald's close to the bank. Hidden beneath a rock near the drive-thru sign, he found another handwritten note. That note directed him toward a wooded area where the next clue was supposedly waiting. Brian never reached it. Police stopped him in a nearby parking lot. Television cameras recorded the scene from a distance as Brian sat handcuffed on the pavement. He told officers that several men had attacked him while he was delivering the pizzas. According to Brian, they had forced the collar around his neck, armed the bomb, and ordered him to rob the bank. He repeatedly warned the police that the device was going to explode. Then the electronic timer began speeding up. Seconds later, the bomb detonated. When investigators searched Brian's vehicle, they discovered the robbery instructions and the remaining scavenger hunt directions. The pages addressed Brian as the bomb hostage. They promised that if he followed every instruction, he would eventually find the keys and the combination needed to remove the collar. The route was complicated. Brian was instructed to travel to different locations around Erie, locate containers hidden near roads and wooded areas, and retrieve new directions before moving to the next destination. Investigators began following the route themselves. They discovered one container marked with orange tape. Inside it was another set of instructions. Those directions led investigators to a jar hidden near a small road sign, but when they reached it, the jar was empty. Someone may have removed the next clue after realizing that police had interrupted the robbery, or perhaps the final clue had never been placed there at all. The bomb itself was unusually sophisticated. It contained timers, locks, metal bands, and wires. Some of the wires were decoys designed to confuse anyone attempting to disable it. The collar functioned like a giant metal handcuff around Brian's neck. It appeared to have been constructed by someone who was comfortable using specialized tools. This was not a device quickly assembled on the morning of the robbery. Someone had spent time designing it. Someone had written the instructions. Someone had carefully selected the locations around Erie. And someone had placed the pizza order that brought Brian to the isolated television tower. But investigators could not determine who that person was. Then, less than 1 month after Brian's death, a man living beside the transmission tower called 911. What police found inside his garage changed the entire investigation. The caller's name was William Rothstein. He lived close to the remote location where Brian had delivered the pizzas. Rothstein told the emergency operator that police would find a dead man inside a freezer in his garage. When officers arrived, that was exactly what they discovered. The dead man was James Roden. Rothstein insisted that he had not killed him. He claimed that a former girlfriend had shot Roden during an argument and later asked Rothstein to help hide the body. Rothstein admitted cleaning the crime scene, concealing the body, and destroying evidence connected to the shooting. Police also discovered a note he had written while apparently considering suicide. The note identified the body inside the freezer, but its opening sentence was strangely specific. It read, "This has nothing to do with the Wells case." Investigators now had 2 disturbing crimes separated by only a few weeks. A pizza driver had been killed by a bomb after visiting the transmission tower beside Rothstein's property. Then Rothstein admitted that he had been hiding a murdered man inside his garage. Yet he immediately insisted that the 2 crimes were unrelated. The woman accused of shooting James Roden was arrested. She eventually pleaded guilty but mentally ill to 3rd-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. For a while, Brian's death and Roden's murder remained separate investigations. William Rothstein died from lymphoma in 2004, without ever being charged in the collar bomb case. It appeared that whatever he knew had died with him. But in 2005, the woman imprisoned for killing Roden began speaking to investigators. She claimed to possess information about the bank robbery. She knew about the kitchen timers used inside the bomb. She admitted that she had been near the bank on the day Brian died. She also claimed that Brian had not been an innocent pizza driver randomly selected for the robbery. According to her, he had been involved in the original plan, but she denied being the mastermind. Instead, she blamed William Rothstein, the man who had hidden her boyfriend's body and later reported her to police. Investigators did not know whether she was telling the truth or attempting to redirect suspicion toward a dead man. Then 4 separate informants told investigators that she had discussed the bank robbery in extraordinary detail. One informant said she had admitted helping measure Brian's neck for the collar. Another man connected to her was already imprisoned on unrelated drug charges. His name was Kenneth Barnes. When investigators questioned Barnes, the pieces finally began moving into place. Barnes described a plan involving the imprisoned woman, William Rothstein, Brian Wells, and himself. But the most important part of his account was not how the bomb had been constructed. It was why they needed the bank's money. The woman at the center of the investigation was Marjorie Deal Armstrong. She was intelligent, unpredictable, and already surrounded by a disturbing history of violence. Years earlier, she had been accused of killing another boyfriend by shooting him multiple times. She claimed self-defense and was acquitted. Later, her husband died under circumstances that generated additional questions, although his death was officially considered accidental. Then in 2003, she killed James Roden, the man whose body Rothstein had stored in his freezer. But according to prosecutors and court records, Roden had not been killed during a simple argument. Roden knew about the planned bank robbery. He objected to it, and he threatened to contact police. So before the robbery could take place, Deal Armstrong shot him. Rothstein then helped conceal his body and destroy the weapon, but that still did not explain why this group had created such a complicated plan to steal $250,000. The answer involved Deal Armstrong's father. She believed he was spending money that she expected to inherit. According to the case established in court, she offered Kenneth Barnes $100,000 to kill him, but she needed a way to obtain the payment. The bank robbery was supposed to produce it. The bomb, the pizza order, and the scavenger hunt were all connected to a murder-for-hire scheme motivated by an inheritance. And Brian Wells's role was more complicated than it had first appeared. Federal investigators concluded that Brian had participated in the early planning of the robbery. Their theory was that he believed the bomb would be fake. The scavenger hunt instructions would make him appear to be a hostage if police captured him. He could claim that strangers had forced him to rob the bank and point to the collar and the instructions as evidence. But investigators believed the conspirators double-crossed him. When Brian arrived at the tower with the pizzas, a real bomb was locked around his neck. He had entered the plan expecting to pretend that he was a hostage. Instead, he became one. Brian's family strongly disputed this conclusion. They maintained that he was completely innocent and had been forced into the entire crime. That question has never been resolved to everyone's satisfaction. But investigators reached an even darker conclusion about the scavenger hunt. The clues were not genuinely designed to save Brian. The bomb was booby-trapped, and the long route consumed the limited time remaining on its timer. Even if Brian had escaped the police and followed every direction, investigators believed he was never going to receive a real path to freedom. He had been sent through Erie to create confusion, waste time, and make the robbery appear to be something it was not. If Brian died, he could never identify the people behind the plan. Kenneth Barnes pleaded guilty and received a 45-year federal prison sentence. In 2010, a jury convicted Marjorie Deal Armstrong of armed bank robbery, conspiracy, and using a destructive device during a violent crime. She was sentenced to life in prison, plus an additional 30 years. William Rothstein, who may have constructed the bomb, and who lived beside the pizza delivery location, died before he could face federal charges. Some investigators and crime experts have continued to question whether Marjorie Deal Armstrong or William Rothstein was the true architect of the most complicated parts of the plan. That secret may have died with him, but the financial motive established in court was clear. The group did not simply want to rob a bank, they wanted money to finance another killing so that one conspirator could protect the fortune she hoped to inherit. Brian Wells believed the clues placed around Erie might lead him to the keys that could save his life. But there was no rescue waiting at the end of the scavenger hunt. There was only another empty hiding place. The bomb squad arrived 3 minutes too late, and the people who created the game may never have intended for Brian Wells to reach the end.